Good morning. This shir is for Maseches Shabbos, Daf Mem Tes Amud Beis, and Daf Nun. The Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Tes Amud Aleph, which we will begin with, discusses items that are allowed to be used for insulation and whether or not those items are subsequently muksa. So that's going to be our starting point. Mem Tes Amud Aleph toward the bottom of the page. Tomnin b'shlachin u'metaltal enosan. One is allowed to use leather to insulate, and they are not muksa. You are allowed to be metaltal them. You can carry them around. However, begizet semer, you are allowed to use gizet semer for insulation, but be'ein metaltal enosan, you are not allowed to use them. They are considered muksa. Ketzad hu ose, as Rashi highlights here, how is it that we remove this from the insulation? How do we remove the pot from the insulation if it's covered in insulation and the insulation's muksa, obviously referring to the gizet semer, which we just said was ve'ein metaltal enosan. If we're not allowed to move them, how do we take the pot out? That's a machlokes tanaim. The first answer in the Mishnah is no telasa kisui ve'hein noflos. You take off the cover alone, and the cover will then move whatever shearings of wool are on top of the cover, and that's permissible to do because it's indirect. It's kila achar yad. That's answer number one. That's how you can access the food. Answer number two, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Omer, kupa mate al tzida v'notel. Instead of tilting. Instead of just taking the pot out, you take out that which is holding the pot and then the insulation in that pot. Inside the largest container, that's what you're pouring out of. You're going to tilt the whole thing and pour out the contents of the food that you need. Why is that the case? Because the Mishnah continues within the opinion of Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, Shema yitol ve'enu yachol lahachzir, because if you take out the pot from within its insulation, it's shearings of wool. All the insulation is going to fall into the cavity, into the hole that you just removed, from which you just removed the pot, in which case you won't be able to put it back. Third sheet in the Mishnah, v'chachamim omrim, no telumachzir, that you can take it out and you can put it back. Unclear from the Mishnah as to what this means. We will learn about this more, though not today. Opens the Gemara with a discussion about what type of leather are we speaking about in our Mishnah. Yasiv Rav Yonasan ben Achinoi, Rav Yonasan ben Elazar, these two Rabbanim were sitting, v'Yasiv Reb Chanina bar Chama Gabayu. Reb Chanina bar Chama was sitting with them. And they were discussing the following shaila. In our Mishnah, when it says shlachin shel balabayis tanan, are we talking about leather that's owned by the private citizen, someone like me or you? We don't work in leather. We're regular consumers. I just happen to have some leather around the house, and I'm willing to use it for insulation. So is that what the Mishnah is talking about? However, if that's true, then the following inference would be correct. But had it been that the leather belonged to a leather expert, a person who works in leather regularly, then maybe he'd be more makbid on that, in which case it would be muksa. Odilma, or perhaps shel uman tanan, maybe our Mishnah is speaking about the more rigid case, the more strict case, that maybe the leather was owned by an uman, someone who is an expert in leather, and then if that's allowed, then v'kol sheken shel balabai. So which one is it? Is the leather in our Mishnah speaking about that of the private citizen or of the expert? Answers the Gemara with the first option. Amar luhu Rav Yonasan ben Elazar mistabra. It makes sense to me, says Rav Yonasan ben Elazar, shel balabai is tonight, that our Mishnah was only speaking about the private citizen, and the inference would be correct. Aval shel uman kapir alayhu, that the person who is a leather expert would not allow their leather to be used, in which case it would then be muksa. Amar luhu Reb Chanina bar Chama. I don't know that that's true. He said, I heard something differently. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. I heard from Rabbi Shmuel in the name of Rabbi Yossi the following, turning to the top of Mem Tes Amud Beis. Abba, my father, Shlacha Haba, he worked in leather, Amar, and he said, Heviu Shlacha Menei Shevalein, in a different context, not about Hatmana, but he said, go get some leather and we'll sit on them to be a little bit more comfortable. Rashi here points out, what does that teach us? Tibur Hamaschel, Heviu Shlacha Menei Shevalein, Amalo Kapi, that they weren't so strict on it. So maybe we could learn from that case, when they were sitting on the leather, that just like they were not strict about sitting on the leather, maybe they weren't strict about using leather for Hatmana either, in which case it would make sense that it's permissible, that it should not be muksa. So that's the discussion that they were discussing here about who owned the leather. So those are the two options. The Gemara asks a question to try to figure out which one was correct. Do we say that our Mishnah is talking about leather owned by a private citizen or leather owned by a leather expert, by an uman? Says the Gemara, two lines from the top on Mem Tes Amud Beis, Meisi Bey, we bring a question from the Tanaim. Nisarim shel balabais metaltalin osan, very clear case. We have a case of Nisarin, it's a board of a carpenter. There's a board, and if it's of a balabais, then metaltalin, it's a regular guy, metaltalin osan, then there's no problem, vishel uman. But if it was of an expert, so then what do we say? Ein metaltalin osan, you're not allowed. We see here a clear distinction between the balabais and the uman. So maybe, recommends the Gemara, we should carry this back over to our story of using leather for hatmana and whether or not it's muksa. Namely, the distinction of the first opinion of Rav Yonasan seems to be accurate, that we should make a distinction between the owner being a balabais and the owner being an uman. So that's one approach that is used to suggest that maybe our first approach is right, that our Mishnah is talking about a balabais, and that had the leather belonged to an uman, it would in fact be usher. This source in the Tanaim continues, but if in fact you had in mind to use those pieces of wood for servicing guests, so then ben kach u ben kach metalton, then of course you'd be allowed to. But the standing assumption is that you're not allowed to, and that the distinction between an uman and a balabais is accurate. Says the Gemara, you cannot learn from the case of Nasarim back to the case of leather. Why not? Because shiny Nasarim de kapit alayud. The people who are involved with wood, the carpenters, are more strict, but maybe by leather, the umnin, the experts over there, would not be quite as strict. So that undoes this as being a conclusive source as to how our Mishnah should hold. But let's try again. Tashma, oros, leather, bein avudin be'uvein she'ein avudin. Whether or not the leather has been tanned yet, mutter l'taltal and b'Shabbos, it's permissible to use. You can always find a purpose for the leather, to sit on it, to insulate. There's plenty to do with leather. And then this source in the Tanaim adds the following: the only distinction that we would make in regards to tuma is only distinction we would make in regards to whether or not leather was tanned already, whether it was processed, is in regards to tuma. That if it is unprocessed, then it's not makabel tuma, because it's not functional yet, not totally functional yet. But once it is tanned, then it would be makabel tuma. That is what this Gemara presents from a source in the Tanaim. Infers our Gemara, my lav lo shna shel bal habayis v'lo shna shel uman. Maybe we can see from here that there's really no difference between a balabais and an uman. This is like the second approach in the Amoraim that we saw, quoting from Rav Shimon ben Yossi, the top line of the page, Abba shlacha haba, and we saw that he was not makbid. And maybe our Mishnah is more inclusive, that it's not only talking about the leathers of a balabais, but even the leathers of an uman. It says the Gemara, lo shel balabais, haval shel uman, mai ein metalto. It says the Gemara, no, you cannot learn that way. Ihachi, if it's true that you're saying that there's a difference in this source in the Tanaim about whether or not leather has been tanned, if you're saying there's a distinction, ihachi, then you said that there's only a difference in regards to tuma bilvad. You should have been mechalek still further in regards to a balabais and an uman. We should have made the distinction to say that there's a difference between different types of owners. If you're a balabais, yes, and if you're an uman, no. So then, what should it have looked like? By medvar mamurim, it should have said in that source in the Tanaim, it should have said bishal bal habayis, abal bishal uman, no. And therefore, it must be, because we don't make this distinction, it must be that kula balabais kamairi and kitana. It's also like the following machlokas in the Tanaim. Oros shel balabais metaltalin osan v'shel uman ein metaltalin. One Tana holds that if the leathers belong to a balabais, then they are not muksa, but if they belong to an uman, to an expert, then they are muksa. And then comes the dissenting opinion, Rabbi Yossi Omer echad zeh ve'echad zeh metaltalin osan. So we can see here that there's a clear difference in the Tanaim, and this was reflected in the Machlokas Amoraim that we just saw toward the bottom of the page by Rabbi Chanina bar Chama, and with the Shita of Rabbi Yonasan ben Elazar. And the Gemara remains inconclusive, other than to say that there is a Machlokas as to whether our Mishnah, when it speaks about shlachin, is talking about the shlachin that belong to a balabais versus shlachin that belong to an expert. We're about a little bit more than 1/3 of the way down on Mem Tesmud Beis. Says the Gemara about a sugya with the same rabbanim, but a different halachic topic, very, very connected to our Masechta and very core to our Masechta. Hadur Yasve v'kami bayalu. They were still sitting together and they asked another shaila. Haditanan abos malachos arbaim chaser achas. That which the Mishnah Daf Ein Gimel says that there were 39 malachos, 40 minus 1, keneged mi. Where did that number come from? A very important Tosfos for us to see. Tosfos Tibra Maschil Arbaim Avos Malachos Chaser Achas Keneged Mi. Says Tosfos as follows: The Harbe Malachos Yesh Tadamya Lehadade. There are many malachos that are similar to one another. Bahava Lon Lemechshavin Hu Kulam Keachas. And each of them should be highlighted on their own. We know that they were taught individually, but why were they taught individually if they're so similar? If not for these tiny differences between Zorah and Borer and Meraki, we would have put them under one umbrella, under one Malacha, but we did not do that. So therefore, there's an implication. If not for the fact that we hold the lamed tes malachos hein keneged shum davar, unless it's representing a specific number of 36. Lakach boy keneged me. That's what the Gemara is, what the Balei Tosos are framing as the question for what the Balei Tosos are framing as the question for the Gemara is whether or not the number of 39 is specific or whether or not the number 39 is not specific. And we're going to see now two different answers in the Gemara. So let's push through here. Says the Gemara, Amar Luhu Reb Chanina bar Chama, the same Amor that we were dealing with, the same Rabbanim were all sitting together. What does Reb Chanina bar Chama say? Keneged avodas hamishkan. We sat there and we counted. Whatever was done in the Mishkan became one of the 39. There was Zorah, there was Borer, and the Meraki. They were different Maisim. So then we tabulated them as different Malachos, even though they're similar. Each of them gets their own. We counted, and we ended up with the number 39, not a specific number. Next answer in the Gemara, Amar Lehu, Yonasan, Rebbe Lazar, Kach Amar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Osi, Lakunya, Keneged Malacha, Malachtu, Malacha, Shebatorah. However many times the shoresh of the word of either of these three framings of the word malacha, malachtu, or malaches just count in the Torah. Let's see, the number is 39. Arbaim chaser achas. Boy, Rav Yosef says, wait a minute. When the pasuk by Yosef says that he came to work that day, the story of Beishas Potiphar, to do his malacha, do we count that word malacha in the tabulation? Amar le Abaye says, what are you asking me? The Lacey Sefer Torah Limne, go get a chumash, crack it open, and count. We don't have to, this isn't a dialogue, we don't have to ask about it, just go count. Says the Gemara, no. Finishes Abaye, Milo Amar Rabbi Barachana Amar Rav Yochanan. Didn't we already learn that when they were sitting there, Lo Zazim Mishama Shehiviu Sefer Torah Naum, they sat there and they counted. So why is he asking this question about the pasuk of Vayavo Habayis Lastos Malachto? Amar Le, he says, no. I only gave you part of the question. Let me give you the full frame of the question. Amar Le, Kikamesafkali. When I'm in doubt, it's in the following way: Mishum Dichsiv VaMalacha Haisad Dayam. When it says that the malacha was all finished by the story of the Mishkan, Mimin Yanahu. That's going to be counted. That he went in to go do the work, and therefore it's going to be included. Dilma, or perhaps maybe the pasuk we don't know what the parameters were for including all of the malachos, because in fact, as many of the Meforshim point out, there's more than 39 references of malacha and malachto in the Torah. So how do we figure out which one? And that's what the Gemara here was really asking deep down. Answers the Gemara, we don't know the answer to that. Take 2/3 of the way down, Tanya, we have a brisa that supports the second opinion of that the number 39 was specific, in that it was tabulated. That the number 39 was not specific, that it was learned out from how many avodos that were done in the Mishkan. Tanya, Amar Keneged avodos Mishkan. The Tanya Ein Chayaven Ella Al Malacha Shekayotzi Bo Haisa B'Mishkan. We're only going to be held accountable according to the malachos that were done in the Mishkan. Haim Zera'o V'Atem Lo Sizro. They planted, so you should not plant. That was done in the Mishkan. You're not allowed. Haim Katzer V'Atem Lo Sixru. You cannot do any harvesting. Haim He'elu Esa Krashim Mikarka Agala. They took the boards of the Mishkan, picked them up from the ground, and put them onto the wagons. V'Atem Lo Sachnisu. Rishus Harabim, Rishus Hayachid. We therefore learn you cannot move things from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Hayachid. Haim Horidu Esa Krashim Miagala Lakarka. They took the boards and moved them from the wagons down to the ground. V'Atem Lo Sotzim Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Harabim. You're not allowed to move things from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim. Haim Otzio Miagala Laagala. They move things from one wagon to another. V'Atem Lo Sotzim Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Hayachid. Therefore, you cannot move things from one Rishus to another, even if they're both Rishus Hayachid. Asks the Gemara, Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Hayachid, my ko'avid. From my backyard to your backyard, if we're neighbors, what's the big deal? I haven't done anything wrong. There's no Rishus Harabim here. Answers the Gemara, yes, there is. Abai v'Rav Adamri Tarbai v'Itema Rav Adabar Abba Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Hayachid, derech Rishus Harabim. What was done in the Mishkan, and what's usher for us, is transferring things from one Rishus Hayachid to another, derech Rishus Harabim. And that is both the Shita of Rav and Abaye, and it seems to be that we therefore support the initial opinion of the Gemara in answering the question of why 39, and the answer seems to be because there were 39. We counted, that's what happened in the Mishkan. Even if there are subtle distinctions between Zorah, Merakid, and Borer, we don't care. They're going to be listed because they were done as separate pu'ulos in the Mishkan. 2 dots all the way to the bottom of Memtes Amud Beis. The Gizeh Tzemer Ve'ein Metaltel, and we said that one is allowed to insulate with the shearings of wool, however they are considered to be muksa. Yet here we have a machlokes of the context. Amar Rava says, let me qualify this shita in the Mishnah. Lo shanu ela shelo taman bahen. When do we say that it's muksa? Only if you have yet to insulate it with them. Aval taman bahen, but if you did insulate, metaltel and osan. Then if you did insulate, then it's usable. So therefore it's not muksa. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. One of the rabbis asked, what is this case of Bar Yome, the Rava? What's Bar Yome? Take a look at the last Rashi on the page. It was the first day that the Beis Medrash was open. And they came in, they were clearing a shiloh to Rava, and they wanted to know about this. If you do hatmana with gizeh tzemer, with the shearings of wool, then seemingly it's the opposite. That Rava said something different. What did he say here? The ein metaltal and osan. We just said lo shanu that they're muksa. We said lo shanu that they're muksa when you are not taman bahem. But if you are taman, if you do insulate, then they're not. And yet this source seems to say that they are. Ketzad huose. How would one navigate that? That gizeh tzemer, says the Gemara. No tela sakisui ve'hein no flos. So we see from there a source in the Tanaim that was brought up to Rava that indicates that if there was Hatmana, they'd still be Muksa, which means that the initial framing, that the initial qualification that Rava gave in the Gemara, Lo Shanu Ela Shelo Taman Ben, is incorrect. And the Gemara therefore pivots to another version of Rava. Eli itmar hachi itmar. Amar Rava lo shanu el shelo yichtan hatmana. When do we say that our Mishnah says that gizei tzemer are going to be muksa? That's only if you were not miyached them before Shabbos. But if you were miyached them, aval yichtan hatmana metaltal enosa, no problem. And in fact, we have another support for this idea that if you're miyached something, that it doesn't become muksa. Itmar nami ki asa Ravin Amar Rav Yaakov Amar Rabasi Bar Shaul Amar Rabbi. All the way back to Rabbi himself, the author of the Mishnayos. Lo shanu, the Mishnah that I wrote, has the following qualification. Lo shanu el shelo yichtam hatmana. When do we say that the gizei tzemer are muksa? That's when if you were not miyached them. But if you were miyached them, no problem. So that's one approach to our Mishnah. Our Gemara gives another answer that says, no, what's our Mishnah talking about? B'shel heftek shana. We're talking about food, about gizei tzemer, shearings of wool that you took off the shelf. Let's say you work at Home Depot, you pulled some shearings off the shelf, you're planning on putting it back. The fact that you're planning on putting it back is the reason why it becomes muksa. It's merchandise that you plan on selling. So once you've used it on Shabbos, it's going to be muksa. Whether or not you've done Hatman, it's going to be muksa. And that is how Ravina explains the Gemara. Ravina Amr B'shel heftek shanu, and a brisa to support his shita. Tanya nami halchi gizei tzemer shel heftek in metal son. You're not allowed to use them. They're considered muksa after or before you've done Hatmana. But if in fact you set them aside to use them, then then you'd be allowed to. The Gemara now shifts to a discussion about how we are miyached things. How do we generate something to be permissible to use on Shabbos? It says the Gemara as follows. Tana, Rabbi Baruchana, Kame de Rav. Rabbi Baruchana taught a case in front of Rav. Charios shel dekel. Let's say a person has chopped wood from a tree. Shegidron la'etzim. You initially cut them for firewood or for wood to be used of any kind. V'nimlach alei in the yeshiva. And then you change your mind and you said, you know what? I think I'm going to make this into a chair. So what does this Tanakama hold? Tzarech lekasher. You have to tie them up in order to be able to be able to indicate that you're ready to use them for Shabbos for something else. It's not firewood anymore, which of course would be muksa on Shabbos. You want to use it for a chair, you got to take some rope and tie up the logs. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer ein tzarech lekasher. You don't have to tie them up at all. So big machlokas, what do we have to do to make something permissible for Shabbos? The Tanakama seems to hold that you have to do kosher in this particular case, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel argues you do not need to. We don't know what he does hold that you're required to do. Maybe nothing, maybe something. But nevertheless, that's the machlokas here. Hu tani la v'hu amar la. This is a reference to Rabbi Baruchana. He taught this source in the Tanaim and he paskined on it. Halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. He holds that you don't have to do a ma'isa in such a case. You don't have to be kosher. You are allowed to just, think about it. We'll see what his shita is shortly. Itmar, we have a statement in the Amoraim. Rav amar kosher, v'Shmuel amar choshev. Rav says, he agrees with the Tanakama that you tie it. V'Shmuel amar choshev, you have to think about it. Just have in mind. Ravasi amar yoshe, you can sit on it. Afal pishalo kisher, even though you didn't tie it up, like Rav was saying. V'afal pishalo kisher, even if you didn't think about it, like the shita of Shmuel. Just ask the Gemara Kasha. Pishlama Rav, I understand the shita of Rav who said kosher. The Amar Tanakama, he holds like the first opinion that we saw, as quoted by Rabbi Baruchana, that says that if you change your mind on the wood, you have to tie around it to now make it into a chair. Also, V'Shmuel Nami, I understand him too. The Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, he also seems to say like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Shmuel understood Rav Shimon ben Gamliel when he said you don't have to be kosher, that you do have to be choshev. You have to have a machshava, but not a maisa. Ela Rav Asi, his shita, where does it come from? Because in our source in the Tanaim, we only saw two shitas. We saw the shita of the Tanakama that you had to be kosher, and we saw the shita of Shimon ben Gamliel that you only have to be choshev. Ela Ravasi, the Amar Keman, who does he hold like? Who the Amar answers the Gemara, he holds like Ki Haitana, like the following brisa. The Tanya, Yotzin bepikurin ubetzipa. These are different types of bandages for medical injuries. Bisman shetzivan v'karchan b'mashicha. When they've been saturated with their medication, that's when you're allowed to go out. Lo tzivan v'lo karchan b'mashicha. If they're not fully dressed and ready to go out, they're not all medically prepared, then ein yotzin bahen. However, v'im yatza bahen sha'achas miba'od yom. If you actually taka wanted to do, you just have to act upon it without the kosher, right? And without the choshev, just an action, something that indicates that it's okay. So then you're allowed, even if once you've done it, even if you didn't do a ma'isa v'lo karchan b'mashicha mutar l'tzeis bahen. So this is Ravasi's source in the Tanaim. Ravashi, Afana Nami Tanina, we have another source to support the opinion of Ravasi. Afana Nami Tanina. Hakash shall gabi amita. If you have straw that is on top of your mattress. Lo yana'anu biyado, you can't touch it with your hand. Aval mana'anu begufo, you can still lie on top of it. That's permissible. Aval im hayamachal behema, if it was meant to be food for an animal, o shahayal of kar o sadin miba'od yom, or if you had set it up in a way, you put your pillow there, you did something that indicated that that was the case, then mena'anu biyado, then you can even touch it directly. Another source for ravasi that you don't need to be kosher. Then you don't need to do a ma'isa to the straw itself. You don't even need to be machshav. You have to do some type of ma'isa different than what both of the other shitas were saying. Says the Gemara. Uman Tana de Paligled Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. When Rabbi Bar Chana brought this case, we brought the initial shita of the Tanakama as follows: if there's wood that you cut for firewood and now you want to make it into a chair, you have to be kosher taira. Whose shita is that? We know Reb Shimon ben Gamliel was brought by name. Who's the second shita? Says the Gemara. It was Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva, the shita that we saw earlier tonight. Earlier this morning. Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva went to a particular place, and we found some wood that was chopped up for firewood. And he said to his students, here's what he said: go. Go think about it. And I don't know what we're going to use it for. It's either going to be for Beis HaMishta, which is a place where you're busy, you're osek in simcha thing, or Rachmana litzlan, a Beis Avel. So the Gemara makes the following inference: because Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva said that we might use them in one of these two places. These two places have a common denominator to them. Dafka Beis HaAvel or Beis HaMishta, the tree day. Those places are places where you're very, very preoccupied. Aval, however, Hacha, in our case, where it's not a Beis HaAvel or Beis HaMishta, then you do have to do a Maisa. Kashar in, if you tie around the wood, then you're allowed to use it lo kashar lo, and therefore we see that this is the shita of the Tanakama who was initially nameless. Now we know it's Reb Chanina ben Akiva. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're right at the widest lines on the bottom of Nun, Amud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, machnes adam lo kupaso afar ve'oseh ba kol tzorcho. You can bring in a whole container of ash, of dirt on Shabbos to be used for whatever you need on Shabbos. You have to bring it before Shabbos, but you're allowed to cover, make it to absorb some liquids. If there's some spit, as Rashi points out, things like that. Darash Mar Zutra Mishmei de Mar Zutra Rabba. Mar Zutra taught from Mar Zutra Rabba, a different person. This is only true if you're miyached that in a particular spot, so that we now know that you're indicating that you want to use it. Amru Rabbanan Kamei de Rav Papa. The rabbi said in front of Rav Papa, Kiman, and it must be that this shita of Mar Zutra, in the name of Mar Zutra Rabba, is Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The fact that you have to be miyached, the Ike Rabbanan, because if it's like the Tanakama, who's Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva, he said that you have to be kosher, and that's what would allow us to use it. Here, if what did we say by the ashes? You have to do a maisa. You have to be miyached, but Karen Zavit. So that seems to be like the shita of the Tanakama. Amar Luhu Rav Papa. Rav Papa said no. Afilu Tema Rabbanan. We could even say, sorry, just one second. Rav Papa said that it must be like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, because Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that you just have to be choshev, and that would be sufficient. Just the yichud was a machshava, it wasn't a maisa. The Ike Rabbanan, if it was like the Rabbanan, then maybe we would have thought that you have to do kosher, you have to do a maisa to the offer. We didn't do a maisa to the offer here. Mar Zutra Rabba said you just have to be miyached. Says the Gemara, Amar Lahu Rav Papa, Afilu Tema Rabbanan. We could even understand this case of the offer to be like the case of the Rabbanan. How so? Ad kan lo ka'amri Rabbanan deba'inan maisa elamide debar avida be maisa. When is it that the Rabbanan, the Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva required us to be kosher the wood? That was only because the wood needed to have kosher around it. But offer, you don't need to do anything to the offer to sit on top of it. It's totally fine. Just use the offer. You have to tie a pretty bow around the offer. So by the wood, Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva required a maisa because you needed a maisa anyways. Over here, because the offer doesn't need a maisa, so there maybe the Rabbanan would agree. He would not agree that there was a necessary step here, and maybe this case of the offer could be understood both according to Shimon ben Gamliel and according to Rabbi Chanina ben Akiva. Name a ketanai. Maybe this is like the machlokes tanaim. The kol chafin esaken chutz mikli kesef begar takon. You can do dishes with any soap that you want. Their soap was extremely abrasive. You can do dishes with anything you want. It's fine, except in regards to a clay kesef, something that's silver begar takon, which was extremely abrasive, and kesef is a soft metal, so that was not allowed. What's the implication from here? A neser b'chol, these two types of soap that they use, these two types of abrasives that they're mutter. Why? Because they're not the ones that were aser. The Tanya, we learned a brayta the opposite. Neser b'chol aser. My lab b'haka miflage. Isn't that what we're talking about here? The marsavar b'inon maisa, marsavar lo b'inon maisa. Maybe we could apply the machloket that we just learned of whether or not you need a maisa like we were saying, the possibilities of different understandings of the Rabbanan, of the Shita Rechanina ben Akiva. Maybe we can apply that here to the soaps. Says the Gemara, no, lo. Dikuli amalo b'inan ma'isa. Below kasha. Really, there's no machlokes between these two brisas. One which says that chol v'neser is mutter, and one which says chol v'neser is not mutter. So what's the answer to what seemed to be a steer in the brisas? Answers the Gemara, what we've discussed 20, 30 times already. Ha Rabbi Yehuda davar davar sheni miskavin aser. Ha Reb Shimon davar davar sheni miskavin mutter. Machlokes Reb Shimon Rabbi Yehuda in regards to davar sheni miskavin is mutter. When the brisa says that it's mutter, that must be Reb Shimon, who says that yes, it may be abrasive, and yes, it's possible that it will shave down the thing that you're cleaning. But so what? It's a davar sheni miskavin, says Reb Shimon, and davar sheni miskavin is mutter. But the brisa that says that neser v'chol is aser, that's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, because he holds if it's davar sheni miskavin, it's aser. So it works perfectly. Kafta referach works perfectly. Says the Gemara, not so clear. You said that one of the cases that was permissible was where the brisa indicated that neser v'chol is mutter. You said that was Reb Shimon. There's a big problem. Because if you finish reading that brisa, we don't have it in our Gemara, but if you finish reading that source, Ema Seifa, Abalo Yichof Bahem Se'aro, it says later that you're not allowed to wash your hair with that because it may pull out your hair. But why would it be usher? It shouldn't be usher if you're Reb Shimon. What does Reb Shimon hold? Davar Sheni Miskavin is mutter. But you, Reb Shimon, Mishra Kashari, it's not. It would be totally permissible. As we turn to the top of Nunam Beis, there should be no problem at all. Nazir Chofe Fumefasves, Aval Lo Sori. You're allowed to wash your hair, but you're not allowed to use a comb. Remember, of course, that a Nazir during this, Rashi points out, this is during the week. B'chol kechol adam b'Shabbos. He's not allowed to pull out his hair. He's not allowed to do haircuts. We see in this brisa, in this Mishnah, that you're allowed to do that. So it should be permissible according to Reb Shimon, if that's how you're understanding the Gemara. But the fact that it doesn't do that, it means that our initial understanding of this conflict between whether or not chol v'neser is mutter or chol v'neser is aser, it can't be the way we answer that one is Reb Shimon and one is Reb Yehuda. Therefore, the Gemara pivots yet again. Elahave ha-Reb Shimon. Both of them are really, Elahave ha-Reb Yehuda. Both are really Reb Yehuda. V'trei tanoi aliba de Reb Yehuda. Hai tana aliba de Reb Yehuda savar garir. V'hai tana aliba de Reb Yehuda savar lo garir. Now remember, the Reb Yehuda doesn't really care about anything other than what halacha is. He doesn't care about the theoretical possibilities of whether or not maybe the malacha will happen. That's where Reb Shimon is matir. Reb Yehuda is looking at this black on white. Are you doing a malacha or not? So one version of understanding the brisa is that when the brisa says chol v'neser is mutter, that's according to the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, in that it must be that there's nothing happening bad. But according to the brisa, which says the chol v'neser is aser, that must be an understanding within Rabbi Yehuda where everything bad is happening and therefore it's aser. So says the Gemara, this doesn't work either. B'mayu kim to Rabbi Yehuda ema seifa. And one of the brisas where you said Rabbi Yehuda would say that it is aser, but the end of that brisa says haval panav yadav raglav mutter. So you just said that we understood the brisa, which said chol v'neser is going to be aser, and it was one version of Rabbi Yehuda. That doesn't work because later in that brisa it indicates that you're allowed to wash your face and your hands and your legs. That's allowed. But why are you allowed? Hama'aver seyar. If you wash your face and you have facial hair, it's going to pull hair off your face. He should say davar sheni miskavin is aser. So you can't say that both of these brisas, the one that says chol v'neser is mutter and the one that says chol v'neser, you can't say that they're both Rabbi Yehuda, because one part of those brisas indicates that you're allowed to wash your face. Answers the Gemara, it must be b'isema b'katan, b'isema b'isha, b'isema b'saris. We must be talking about a child, or we must be talking about an isha, or we must be talking about a saris. So that's how the Gemara answers the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, that it does still work, and that we assume that the reason why in those cases he allowed for the washing of the hands and face, even though he normally does hold the davar sheni miskavin is aser, was because it was a washing a person's face who didn't have facial hair, any significant amounts of facial. A good shaila as to why peach fuzz, the small hairs on a person's face, why that wasn't problematic for him. I didn't see anything in the Rishonim quickly that discussed that. And therefore, our answer stands that the two brisas, one which indicates chol v'neser is mutter, and one which indicates chol v'neser, these types of soaps are aser, both of them are Rabbi Yehuda, and it's trei tanoi aliba Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara now continues with a variety of different types of soaps that they used and whether or not they were permissible on Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Afar Levinta Shari, they used to take their bricks and grind them up as an abrasive. That's permissible. Amar Rabbi Yosef Kuspa Diazmin Shari, using some derivative of sesame was okay. Amar Rava Afar Pilpule, to take peppers and to turn them into a ground version of it. That's permissible as well. Amar Rav Sheshes Barda Shari, Barda is permissible as well. What's Barda? Asks the Gemara. My Barda. Amar Rav Yosef Tilsa Ahala, the Tilsa Asa, the Tilsa Siglet. It was 1/3 Ahala. Rashi says that that's a derivative of a grass root. 1/3 was Asa, which is myrtle, with Tilsa Sigli, which is violet. Amar Reb Nechemia Bar Yosef Kol Hecha Deleka Ruba Ahala Shapir. He argues a little bit with this shita and says it's not only thirds, as long as you have up to 50%, just not 51 of the ahala, then it's permissible. After that, it becomes too abrasive, and therefore it would not be permissible to use. Bo Menei Rav Sheshes Ma'al Liftzah Zeisim B'Shabbos. Is one allowed to bruise, to injure olives on Shabbos? What does this mean? Huge machlokas rishonim, which takes us in two wildly different directions. Rashi indicates here that this is speaking about an idea that one is allowed to bruise, whether or not one is allowed to bruise an olive on Shabbos, and it would take away some of the bitterness of the olive. That was just a technique that they used to take away some of the powerful, sometimes overwhelming flavor of an olive. Masha'in came. Tosfos on the right side, I have here in the small font. And that Tosfos, he highlights this. He doesn't understand what Rashi is talking about. That's the first part of Rashi, of the Tosfos. And then on the second, he indicates, we're not talking about olives out of the blue, but we're talking about using olives as a scrubbing agent to clean ourselves. Can I crack open an olive in order to use it to scrub my panav raglav, to scrub my face and hands? So that's the question of Rav Sheshes. Again, machlokas Rashi Tosfos. So the question is, Ma'aliv to Zeisim Shabbos. Amar Lahu Yisatem B'chi B'chol Mihitiru. You're allowed to do that during the week. What's implied from there? Kasav Mishum Hefsed Ochlin, because it seemed to be that it was a waste of food. You're not allowed to do that. It says the Gemara, Lema Pliga de Shmuel. This may argue on the shita of Shmuel. Damar Shmuel, Osa Adam Kol Tzarcha B'Pas. You can do whatever you want with bread, even if it seemingly would be wasted. Says the Gemara, Amrei Pas Lo Me'isa. There's a difference between bread and olives. The bread is not disgusting when it's broken up into small pieces. Hani Me'ise, but when you crush olives, that is disgusting. So therefore, we cannot learn from there necessarily. Meimar Marzutra Ravashi Havu Yasve Aisu L'Kamayu Barda. Meimar Marzutra and Ravashi were all sitting there, and they brought Barda, this soap that's made out of those three ingredients of the grassroot, of the myrtle, and of the violet, and only some of them used it. Let's see. Aisula Kamahu Barda, Ameimar Veravashi Mashu. Mashu in Aramaic means to wash. The two of them use this soap, the Barda, to wash their hands. Marzutra lo Masha, and Marzutra did not use this particular soap. Amrule, they said to Marzutra, lo Savar Lamar Lahada Amar of Sheshes Barda Shari. You don't hold of that? You don't hold that you can use this soap? Someone else responded on behalf of Marzutra. Amar Lahur of Mordechai, Barmine Demar. And you cannot learn from Marzutra as to whether or not he uses Barda. Why not? He wouldn't use it during the week, but for a totally side reason. What was his concern? Mishum, the Gersa changer, Mishum, the Savar law, ki hadatanya, like this Bryce, Megar Adam Gilde Tov Gilde Maka Shalbasaro, Bishvil Tsaro. You're allowed to take things and scrub your body. If there's things dirty, you have some injuries, you have some scabs, you're allowed to take them off, no problem at all. However, only if it's bishvil tzaro, because it's uncomfortable. In bishvil yapos aser, but if you're doing it to make yourself look beautiful, that is halachically problematic. Why? Take a look at Rashi, Dibur Hamaskal, Mishum Yapos is Atzmo, just to the left. Mishum Loyil Bashgever, Simas Isha. That's the way that women take care of themselves, not the way that men take care of themselves. You can't beautify yourself just for the sake of beautifying yourself. You need a different reason. It's uncomfortable, it hurts, whatever the case may be. So that's why Marzutra wasn't using Barda, because it was being done in a way, it would have been usher, because he had no direct purpose to do it, not one that he felt was mutter. What about the other Rabbanim? They don't hold to this pasuk in the Torah. What's pshat there about lo silvash? So let's see how they hold. The inu keman asavru. Who do they hold like? They hold like Yihad Tanya, like the Brisa writes, and like we hold as well. We are obligated to beautify ourselves before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not for the gashmias of it, but for the ruchnias of it, to make sure that we're presentable, that we're mechubad, and that's the right way to go. We'll pause here, and we will, Mirz Hashem, pick up tonight, Sunday night, with Daf Nun Aleph, starting at the 2 dots, 2/3 of the way down on Nun Amud Beis. Have a great day.